Amidst a raging storm, he discovered an incredible bond that transformed their lives forever. Jason stood at the threshold of the garage, staring into the horizon where dark storm clouds brewed like secrets waiting to unravel. The relentless wind whipped around him, mirroring the turmoil in his chest. At 32, life had narrowed into a relentless cycle of grease-stained hands and the burdens of an old family legacy that felt increasingly fragile. The business, once thriving, now teetered on the brink of closure, just more bills piling up with each passing day as the small forgotten town around him dimmed. He flicked the light switch, but the flickering bulb barely cut through the dark. Doubts gnawed at him, fueled by the whispers of other mechanics who had already turned in their wrenches. His father's ghost, a man who had drummed the value of hard work deep into his bones, haunted him alongside the sobering reality of their crumbling dream. Jason hesitated, the weight of loyalty clashing with desperation. What if it all fell apart? What if he couldn't save what remained of the family's name? Just as he turned to retreat into the familiar comfort of solitude, a flash of lightning illuminated the road ahead. He squinted through the sheets of rain and caught sight of a figure, an image of vulnerability against the violence of the storm. Pulling his jacket tight, he fought the gnawing instinct to ignore the scene unfolding before him. A strong gust of wind echoed his internal hesitance, pushing him toward the road. That's when he saw her, Maria, her 2 children huddled close, shivering as they braced against the tempest. Reaching them felt instinctive, almost like reaching for hope. The storm raged on, yet he felt an unusual warmth igniting inside. "You guys need a little help," he urged, his voice barely breaking through the chaos. He led them into the garage, a sanctuary of oil-stained rags and cold steel that mirrored their own steel resolve against life's turbulence. Inside, as the storm raged outside, Maria's laughter danced with the sound of rain. She shared dreams of nursing, about the struggles of being a single mother, and the prejudice weighing her down. Her words were a lifeline, exposing Jason's own fears, that nobody would take him seriously, burdened as he was with a garage that could fade like chalk on a stormy day. He hesitated. Was he really in a position to help someone else when he couldn't even help himself? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days morphed into weeks, each moment spent studying with Maria at the workbench, a sweet reprieve from the insistent weight of mounting pressure. The flickering light became a beacon, her determination mingling with theirs, igniting a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. But as Maria's confidence blossomed, Jason felt shadows creeping in. A presence from his past emerged, a rival lurking, intent on dragging him under. The storm outside simmered. Another tempest brewed from within. Standing at a crossroads, fingers gripping the greasy workbench, Jason felt a churning in his gut. Could he protect this fragile bond he had built? The fear of losing it all terrorized him. He fought against these emotions, wrestled with the idea that survival might come with a steep cost. But could integrity hold against deceit? As tension spiked, an uneasy truth hung in the air, vibrating like the thunder overhead. He steeled himself. What sacrifices lay ahead if he was to protect both the dream he cherished and the newfound hope they'd built together? The storm rumbled louder, a catalyst igniting his deepest fears, leaving everything in doubt. Would he find the strength to weather both storms? Every morning felt like an echo of the last, yet a subtle shift began to weave itself into Jason's routine, the rhythm of the garage intertwined with the growing ambition he sensed in Maria. Her presence breathed new life into the stagnant air, as if the walls of machinery were absorbing her hopeful energy. They worked side by side, tackling rusted engines and old repairs, but beneath the surface, Jason sensed that their partnership was about to be tested in ways he hadn't anticipated. One crisp morning, he found Maria poring over a worn-out project, the community center's delivery van. Its condition mirrored his own life's desperation. Cracked bodywork, dead headlights, an embodiment of neglect. "We could get this back on the road," she said, her eyes sparkling with determination. "It could really help people here." He hesitated, feeling the weight of the garage pressing down on him. "You know it's just going to cost more money, more time we may not have," he replied, pushing down the flicker of hope that dared to ignite. Deep within, another feeling bubbled, an outrage against the limitations he imposed on himself, the guilt that overcame him for even contemplating failure. "Or it could be the chance we need," Maria countered, her passion igniting something in him. He had almost forgotten what it felt like to dream beyond survival, to think of ways to build rather than merely maintain. As they analyzed parts and brainstormed solutions, the cloud of uncertainty he carried began to dissipate. That was until he received a jarring call. Rob, his rival and former colleague, had decided to show his face in town again. The news struck Jason like a thunderclap. Rob's repair shop, a slick, modern operation, had been thriving while Jason barely scraped to keep the garage open. Their history was a tangled mess of competition and betrayal, memories Jason wished he could forget but wouldn't ever shake. "What's he doing here?" Jason mused, anger flushing through him. His insecurities bubbled to the surface as he envisioned Rob flaunting his success, eager to siphon off the few loyal customers Jason had left. The looming threat was palpable. Jason could almost feel the weight of Rob's sneering presence. As the week wore on, he felt Maria's unwavering support, but doubts crept in. Could he truly stand up to Rob? More importantly, would he have to sacrifice his integrity to do so? When they had their first real confrontation at the local diner, temptation tugged at him. Rob's sleazy charm draped over his carefully woven words like a coating of oil, making it hard to see the truth. Rob lingered, offering deals that could siphon away the business he so desperately clung to. With each passing moment, Jason considered the implications of engaging with Rob. Sinking lower into the quicksand of deceit could mean saving his business, but at what cost? Would that spill into the fragile trust building between him and Maria? The conflict within him reached a peak, a cacophony of fear and determination drowning out the noise around him. The moment hung in the air. His next move could either solidify or shatter everything he had worked for, everything Maria believed in. The pit in his stomach twisted tighter. Just as he turned to face Rob, he heard a voice that sent shockwaves of reality crashing down, affirming in that singular instance the very essence of unity and ambition he had been longing to embrace. "Jason, what are you going to do?" His heart raced. This betrayal was not just his to endure, but a battle they would face together. The decision hung heavy. How could he defend his future without losing himself? The moment had arrived for him to confront everything that stood in his way. He took a deep breath, ready to step back into the storm, feeling the weight of resolve and fear collide within him. His chance to reclaim both his dream and integrity lay ahead. Would he seize the moment or let it slip away into the fog of time? Jason's breath caught in his throat as he turned to Rob, a mixture of anxiety and determination wrestling inside him. The diner, with its flickering neon lights and worn-out vinyl booths, felt suddenly suffocating. Maria's gaze, sharp and insistent, anchored him. It was a tangible reminder of everything he was fighting for, his garage, his integrity, and the partnership they were slowly forging. Rob's smirk widened as he leaned casually against the counter. "You know, Jason, there are easier ways to make a living. I could help you out," he said, his voice dripping with false camaraderie. The ease with which Rob offered his help felt like an insult, a challenge to Jason's very foundation. "What do you mean?" Jason asked, feigning indifference, while internally grappling with the implications of every word exchanged. He felt the weight of expectations, both from Maria and himself, hanging heavily in the air. Rob's eyes glinted, clearly enjoying the tension. "I'm expanding my business. I could use a good mechanic who knows the ropes. You'd be a valuable asset, and I might be willing to take on some of your debt." The offer dangled like a lifeline, yet Jason sensed the frayed edges. Jason inhaled deeply, his chest tightening. Choosing Rob meant a clean break from the grime of his failing garage, but also a dishonor of what he and Maria were working towards. Was it worth it? He glanced at Maria, and in her unwavering gaze, he found a resolve that stoked the fire within him. The scars of their shared journey were visible, and he wasn't ready to devalue them for an escape wrapped in deceit. "No, Rob," Jason said firmly, surprised by the steadiness of his own voice. "I'm not interested in your deals. I've got a plan of my own." He felt a weight lift, the adrenaline-fueled rush of standing his ground sending a current through his body. Rob's expression shifted, a flash of surprise followed by ire. "You think you can make this dump work? You'll drown, Jason. Mark my words." "Maybe, but at least I'll drown on my own terms." With that statement hanging in the air, Jason turned his back, consciously leaving Rob's venomous presence behind. As he stepped out into the brisk night, that same resolve pulsed in him. The streets carried a stark clarity, illuminated under the yellow glow of the streetlights. He felt lighter, invigorated by the defiance he'd just displayed. He knew challenges lay ahead, tangible challenges, like fixing that dilapidated delivery van and building a loyal customer base. He was aware that fear could still seep in any moment, with Rob lurking just outside his sphere. But beneath that fear simmered something more powerful, the burgeoning belief in himself, in their partnership. "Maria," he said, breathing in the cold night air, "I think we need to take that van. It's not just about fixing it. It's about showing everyone what we can do when we come together." Her eyes lit up anew as he outlined his vision, vibrant with the possibilities that had begun to unfurl in his mind. A community that needed more than quick fixes, an effort that transcended mere repairs. But the impact of Rob's offer haunted him, a whisper in the back of his mind, reeling him back to the depths of uncertainty. Had he truly escaped that temptation, or was it merely lying in wait for an opportune moment? That question loomed larger as they began sketching blueprints for their plan, hoping to elevate not just the van but also the values of trust and partnership. As they dove into the details, Jason felt a shift deep within him, a sense of purpose anchoring his ambitions. But shadows remained, waiting to push his resolve to a breaking point. The night was still young, and the path ahead was winding. Little did he know, the ultimate test of his integrity loomed just around the corner, ready to challenge every decision he had made so far. Would the bond he was cultivating withstand the trials that were sure to come, or would the shadows of his past threaten to consume it all? Jason awoke the next morning with a sense of urgency coursing through him. The weight of the previous night's confrontation with Rob lingered, but it was a different kind of pressure now, one that propelled him toward action. The sight of the garage, with its peeling paint and cluttered workbenches, acted as an incessant reminder of everything at stake. As he sipped his coffee, the sunlight filtering through the window transformed the space into something almost sacred. He felt an electric charge at the thought of turning this place around. He reached for a notebook, its pages already stained with his scrawls and ideas, and began drafting a to-do list. Fix the delivery van, recruit a few local talents, and brainstorm promotions. Each task felt like a step away from Rob's insidious offer, cementing his resolve. Maria arrived, her energy almost palpable. She carried a toolbox and a bright smile. "Ready to dive in?" she asked, and the vibrancy of her enthusiasm infected him. "Absolutely, I've got a plan," Jason replied, feeling emboldened. Together they stepped into the garage. The scent of engine oil and the sound of tools clattering against metal filled the air. Each flick of a wrench painted a picture of resilience. Jason realized how much he craved this environment. Despite the mess, it felt like home. "Let's tackle the van first," he suggested. As they maneuvered around the rusted chassis, he sensed Maria's curiosity about his vision. "Once it's up and running, we can market ourselves as the go-to place for reliable service in the area," he explained, excitement creeping into his tone. "And what else?" she inquired, keeping him on his toes. He paused, realizing the foundation of his aspirations lay beyond repairs. "I want to create a space where people trust us, not just for fixing cars, but for building relationships, showing them that we care. It's about integrity." Maria nodded, her thoughtful expression passing through a plethora of emotions. "Then what are we going to do to convince them?" The weight of her question struck him. He needed to demonstrate their commitment, not just talk about it. But how? Moments later, inspiration ignited. "Community workshops. We can hold sessions on car maintenance basics, educate folks while bringing them into our space, building relationships." The spark in Maria's eyes mirrored his own as they bathed in the warmth of their shared vision. The idea felt right, grounded in their values. But just as excitement took hold, a flicker of doubt appeared uninvited. What if they were stretching themselves too thin? What if Rob decided to sabotage them? "Do you think it's worth the investment?" she asked, casting a glance at the van's grim exterior. "We won't know if we don't take the leap," he countered, feeling the tension in his voice. They spent hours assessing the van's condition, deciphering which parts needed replacing, which could be salvaged. Progress was slow, but with each bolt tightened, Jason saw not just the vehicle but their ambitions taking shape. As evening descended, Maria wiped the sweat from her brow. "Feel that? It's like we're finally manifesting our purpose here." Jason couldn't help but grin. But then, as he leaned against the wall, exhaustion wrapping around him, Rob's proposition crept back into his mind. Was this truly the path he was meant to take? Was this commitment to hard work and integrity destined to prevail? Or would temptation swoop down like a vulture to pick at the bones of their dreams? That night, Jason lay awake, the shadows deepening in his mind. He could almost hear Rob's voice, taunting him, but just as quickly as it came, Jennifer's laughter echoed in his thoughts, a reminder of the partnership they had forged, the promise yet unbroken. The next dawn would present a new opportunity, yet the specter of Rob lingered, a mark of constant doubt, insinuating that failure was still just a step away. As Jason closed his eyes, he pondered the significant decision awaiting him, one that could either solidify their trust or unravel everything they had built. The moment of decision edged closer, and doubts loomed nearer, ready to challenge his newfound beliefs. Would he stand firm when confronted again by Rob, or would his resolve crumble under pressure? The bright morning light streamed through the partially open garage door, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. Jason felt the warmth on his skin, a stark contrast to the cold grip of doubt that had taken hold of him the night before. Today would not just be another day, it would be the beginning of a crucial chapter in his life. With grit forming in his stomach, he committed himself to clarity and purpose. He gathered his notes, sketches, and a few design ideas for their workshop flyers. He had resolved to make the community workshops a reality. Maria arrived, carrying another toolbox, her spirit unyielded by the previous day's uncertainties. Her enthusiasm was infectious and served as a shield for his fragile resolve. "We've got to create some buzz," he said, already pacing as if moving the thoughts in his head forward. "What if we set up some early bird specials for the workshops? First 5 enrollments get a discount on their first service." Maria's eyes lit up. "Great idea. Targeting people who truly want to learn could drive the interest we need and bring them in the door." But a gnawing fear settled in the pit of his stomach as he scribbled these ideas down. What if Rob's presence loomed large enough to overshadow their humble efforts? Who would come to them for workshops when they could easily turn their heads to the shiny allure of Rob's operation across town? He had to transform this fear, this doubt into action, or risk losing everything they had started to build. "Let's do a local advertising push," he said, trying to drown out his anxiety with proactivity. "Maybe print up some flyers and hang them around town? We could recruit a couple of locals to spread the word." "What about social media?" Maria suggested. "We could create a Facebook event for it." Jason nodded, heart pounding a little faster. "Yes, a community presence online could also help position us as the fallback when they need something done right." As they mapped out their strategy, their discussion shifted towards logistics. The van needed repairs, and so did the community's trust in them. Each wrench they turned on the vehicle slowly transformed Jason's doubt into confidence. Every minor victory, the engine sputtering to life after painstaking effort, or the cheers from children watching, was a tangible affirmation of their purpose. Yet as they tightened each bolt, he couldn't escape the idea of Rob. The man was a seasoned strategist, capable of sensing weakness like a predator. Jason envisioned Rob's calculating smile while plotting how to sabotage their burgeoning efforts. It affixed Jason with an insatiable urge to prepare not only for success, but also for confrontation. His thoughts began to swirl, creating a mental fog. What if they began to attract customers? What if word got around, igniting competition? Competitive endeavors never solved anything in Jason's world. It always led to underhanded tensions. He needed to confront Rob, not out of anger, but as a declaration. "Maria," he said suddenly, surprising even himself. "I think we need to do some reconnaissance." "Reconnaissance?" she asked, raising an eyebrow in curiosity. "To figure out exactly what we're up against," he explained, a surge of determination filling his voice. "I want to know how they operate. The more we understand their tactics, the better we can position ourselves in this town." Her expression shifted from curiosity to intrigue. "You think we can gather enough information?" "Together we can," he declared, feeling a united front forming around them. "It will help us solidify our own identity and challenge their influence." The plan began to take shape, filling Jason with anticipation and fear. The prospect of personal growth and potential conflict lit a fire within him, a fierce commitment to proving that his integrity was a currency stronger than mere allure. But even as this emboldened him, he couldn't shake the underlying apprehension. Would their pursuit of truth and community ultimately lead them to victory, or would Rob prove to be the thorn in their side? As the sun dipped low in the sky, casting elongated shadows in the garage, Jason realized that his next steps were pivotal. The time had come to engage. The time had come to face their antagonist. The stage was set, the stakes unmistakably high, and questions lingered in the air like a charged storm cloud. Would they emerge victorious, or would their aspirations fade under the weight of an unforeseen rival? The following morning was decidedly overcast, the sky heavy with leaden clouds that mirrored Jason's tumultuous thoughts. Each droplet of rain felt like an echo of his uncertainty, reminding him that the stakes had never been higher. Today, they would venture into Rob's territory, a necessary step if Jason wanted to transition from anxious dreaming to assertive action. As he and Maria prepared for their reconnaissance mission, Jason's mind drifted over potential outcomes. What if they walked into a confrontation? Was he prepared to face Rob head-on and maintain his calm? The thought made him doubt himself, a wave of discomfort washing over him like the steady rainfall outside. "Got everything you need?" Maria called from the door, already bundled in her weather gear. The determination in her voice jarred him from his spiral of uncertainty. "Yeah, let's get going," he replied, attempting to sound confident. With one last glance back at their garage, he pushed down the unsteady feeling. What would they uncover? What insights would they gain that could either harm or help their fledgling business? Their destination was a bustling section of town where Rob's operation thrived. As they strode through puddles, an unsettling mixture of admiration and resentment gnawed at Jason. Rob had set the benchmark for success in their industry, and the enticement of his slick, professional facade hovered ominously above Jason's resolve. When they reached the parking lot, the enormity of their task settled onto Jason's shoulders like an anchor. "Okay, we need to split up to cover more ground. You talk to the customers, and I'll check out the setup inside," Jason suggested, attempting to appear unfazed. Maria hesitated, her normally bright demeanor muted. "Do you think that's wise? What if he sees you?" Jason's gut tightened at the thought. "It's a risk we have to take. Knowledge is power, and we need everything we can get." The weight of leadership pressed heavily upon him, forcing him to confront a troubling truth. He was not just remedying a business problem, he was grappling with his identity. They exchanged nods and split up. Jason slid through the entrance, nerves coursing through his veins as he walked past the sleek displays of Rob's operation. The polished walls gleamed under fluorescent lights, and Jason couldn't help but feel as though he was entering enemy territory. Inside, he focused on observing key details, the layout of the floor plan, how employees interacted with customers, and the services promoted prominently on display. It was a well-orchestrated system, and wonder mingled with dread as Jason began to feel the enormity of Rob's operation. He felt small amidst this show of force. A sudden shift in energy caught his attention. Rob himself entered the room, an air of confidence radiating from him. Jason's pulse raced, the instinct to hide battling with the need to stand firm. "Look who we have here," Rob called out, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Taking a deep breath, Jason felt his resolve solidifying. It was no longer about hiding behind uncertainty. It was about presenting who he really was and what he aimed to build. "Just checking out the competition," Jason responded, forcing a calmness he didn't feel. Every word was carefully chosen, a dance between respect and defiance. Rob smirked, clearly relishing the chance to belittle. "You're brave, I'll admit, or maybe just foolish. You wouldn't want to get in over your head." Jason fought to maintain his composure. Was it possible that Rob's words were designed to provoke that same sense of doubt he had struggled with? Meanwhile, across the room, Maria engaged a group of customers, soaking in their reactions and gathering invaluable information. The contrast illuminated their differing strengths. While Jason's courage stemmed from confrontation, Maria thrived in connection, effortlessly easing into genuine conversations. As Jason watched her work, something stirred within him, an acknowledgement of his own unique skills. He realized he didn't need to emulate Rob's cutthroat style to succeed. He could forge his own path, strengthened by his commitment to community and integrity. With renewed determination, he retreated to meet Maria, just as she approached him, eyes sparkling with insights. "They love the idea of our workshops. People are looking for authenticity, something different from what Rob offers." His heart raced at the revelation. They could cultivate something distinctly their own, a vibrant alternative to Rob's corporate charm. The first step had been taken, a delicate balancing act between understanding an adversary and reaffirming their purpose. But as they exited, satisfaction settled alongside an unsettling thought. Confronting Rob was just the beginning. A deeper battle for their identity awaited. Jason exchanged a glance with Maria, sensing that the conflict to come was not just with their competitor, but within themselves. With that, he braced for the next leg of his journey, aware that their resolve would soon be truly tested. His next move could change everything, but would it be enough? As Jason and Maria walked towards their car, the weight of their mission lingered in the air, crackling like the impending storm. His mind raced with the possibilities that awaited them. Would their next steps be brave enough to match the ambitions stirring inside him? He was overwhelmed by a cocktail of anticipation and anxiety, the storm overhead mirroring the tempest of thoughts in his mind. Driving back, Maria recounted the details she had gathered. "People mentioned they feel neglected in this oversaturated market. They need more than just services, they crave a connection. Our workshops could be the answer," she said, her voice suffused with excitement. Jason absorbed her words, the budding ideas igniting a fire within him. This was the opportunity they needed. "We could create a space where they feel valued, the antithesis of what Rob represents," he mused, his spirit lifting. But the reminder of Rob's dismissive tone haunted him. Jason realized that defining their path meant not only withstanding Rob's taunts, but also stripping away his own self-doubt. Could he be the leader who would bring authenticity to their vision while standing firmly against the competition? The rain fell heavily now, almost as if it could wash away the remnants of his insecurities. Yet uncertainty was a heavy cloud that refused to disperse. He glanced at Maria, who was lost in her thoughts, her determination unwavering. "Maria," he started hesitantly, "what if we fail? What if Rob decides to retaliate? He already has the upper hand." She shot him a look of encouragement. "Every successful entrepreneur has faced challenges. It's how we respond that defines us. Our ideas are rich, and the market is hungry for something different." Her belief wedged itself into the cracks of his quiet doubts, compelling him to reconsider his perspective. They returned to the garage, drenched yet invigorated by their discussions. As they dried off and settled in for a brainstorming session, Jason found himself reflecting on earlier events. He had acted out of fear rather than conviction. He now understood that confronting Rob wasn't just about standing firm, it was about instilling resilience within himself. That night over a cup of coffee, the atmosphere thickened with creativity. Ideas flowed, unrestrained by the fear of failure. They sketched plans for their workshops, discussing potential themes and formats. With each line drawn on the paper, Jason began to redefine what leadership meant for him. Not a figurehead lording over a team, but rather a collaborative spirit guiding a vision toward fruition. As their list grew, the realization struck him. He was not merely defined by Rob's shadow. Instead, he was stood at the edge of a unique opportunity to craft his own identity. He had the chance to become the leader he always aspired to be, resilient, authentic, and inspiring. But even as his doubts began to evaporate, another thought encroached. Could he truly engage a community that had been nurtured by Rob's polished pretenses? How could he compete seamlessly yet authentically against such hardened opposition? The ink barely dried on their plans when Jason's determination was interrupted by a sudden idea. What if we reach out to some of Rob's customers, just to hear their stories, understand their grievances? It could provide depth to our approach. Maria's expression shifted. That's risky, Jason. What if Rob catches wind of that? It could lead to trouble. His heart raced at the thought of direct confrontation. Yet this was the essence of growth, the heart-pounding uncertainty that lit a fire in him. Sometimes you have to shake things up to create a spark. We need to tap into their dissatisfaction if we want to forge a genuine bond with our audience. Jason's voice grew firmer with conviction. They weren't merely wading through a market, they were challenging a system. He felt the familiar surge of fear, but alongside it was an electric rush of determination. He would not allow doubt to paralyze him any longer. With their plans taking a new shape, Jason exchanged a determined look with Maria. The next phase beckoned, one that would demand everything from them. Gathering his breath, he spoke. The time has come to face Rob's empire, but perhaps more importantly, it's time to face ourselves. As the weight of those words settled in the room, Jason felt time stand still. He now understood that their endeavors would lead to a confrontation not only with Rob, but with the very complex layers of his own identity. What awaited him in this unfolding journey? That tantalizing uncertainty pulled him toward the next challenge. Would he rise from this storm, or would he let it sweep him away into oblivion? The next morning arrived with a thin veil of sunlight peeking through the clouds, but Jason felt far from bright. The anticipation of the day ahead weighed on him like a leaden cloak. Plans are only as good as the actions that follow, and though he had mental sketches of their outreach strategy, too many what-ifs rattled his mind. Maria was already full of energy when they met at their usual cafe, all business with a latte in hand. "Ready to shake things up?" she asked, her eyes shining with enthusiasm. Her demeanor was infectious, yet Jason struggled to match her fervor. "Let's just be cautious," he replied, forcing a smile. "We need to think this through. What's our angle? How do we even reach out to these customers without raising alarms?" Maria waved her hand dismissively. "We'll figure it out. We're not in this for handouts. We want to provide value." He could see the conviction in her eyes, a conviction he wished he could feel. They settled into a work rhythm, banter mingling with serious brainstorming. A delicate balance between laughter and focus filled the air. As the minutes passed, Jason began to sketch out potential interview templates, questions tailored to elicit heartfelt responses from Rob's former clients. Would they share the disappointments that fueled their yearning for something more? He wondered if these questions were sharp enough to cut past the well-polished veneer Rob had constructed. Yet doubt lingered. Would they really speak out? Would Rob's influence intimidate them into silence? As laughter and excitement erupted in the cafe around him, the noise only amplified Jason's anxiety. The weight of public perception was no mere shadow. It felt like a heavy chain. "Let's do this," he declared suddenly, pushing his worries aside. "We'll reach out to 5 clients this week. We'll structure our questions to allow them to vent. Free-form discussions, no pressure." He felt a surge of confidence, though layered with residual fear. "So we're really doing it?" Maria grinned, warmth radiating from her. "Yeah, we are," he replied, voice steadying. The clarity of purpose washed over him as the coffee cooled in his cup. Was this the first true test of his leadership? To navigate these dangerous waters and emerge stronger than before? The rest of the day was consumed with preparations. They drafted emails, rehearsed phone calls, and curated a welcoming approach, ensuring clients that sharing their experiences was safe. The effort ignited a sense of momentum in Jason's chest. This wasn't merely a task, it was a chance for connection, a personal reinvention. Later that evening, as the golden light of dusk draped the city, he sat alone, sipping tea and reflecting. His thoughts shifted to why they were doing this. It wasn't just to combat Rob. It was about fostering community trust and understanding the real voices behind the market facade. Flashes of fears danced in his mind, yet those thoughts were balancing themselves with burgeoning courage. He found himself wondering, what if this outreach changed more than just their business? What if it reshaped his identity, revealing strengths he harshly criticized in the past? Just then, his phone buzzed with a message from Maria. "I believe in you, Jason. Let's make a difference." The simplicity struck him, and in that instant, he realized the need for belief wasn't only external. With uncharacteristic resolve, he replied, "Let's meet early tomorrow. I have an idea." The thought surged through him. Without risk, there could be no growth, and perhaps embracing this uncertainty would rewrite the fearful narratives he clung to. As evening descended, Jason prepared for bed, wrestling with the question that beat relentlessly in his mind. Could he rise to meet the complexities of this challenge? The notion ignited sparks of both trepidation and excitement, merging into a sense of impending transformation. But just as that realization settled, a distant sound crackled through the air, a reminder of chaos lurking in the shadows. Jason's heartbeat quickened. What if Rob caught wind of their plans before they even began? The uncertainty sent a shiver down his spine, igniting a new layer of resolve. Rising to meet uncertainty was one thing, but facing a prompt already set into motion was another challenge entirely. The moment of confrontation drew ever closer, and Jason was acutely aware that he stood at a crossroads. Could he embrace the unknown, or would he retreat beneath the shelter of doubt? With that looming question, he closed his eyes, the anxious storm of possibilities swirling with anticipation in the dark. Tomorrow beckoned, bearing both the promise of change and the clouds of impending confrontation. The next morning unfolded in a series of chaotic thoughts as Jason awoke, remnants of his anxious dreams clinging to him like fog. There was no escape from the weight of the day ahead. He had agreed to reach out, to face Rob's influence, but now, the reality of those words felt as daunting as ever. Over breakfast, he struggled to concentrate as his mind spun with possible scenarios. What if their approach only antagonized Rob? What if the clients turned on him instead of supporting them? The rapid clicking of his phone seemed to draw him from his spiraling thoughts. He checked his notifications. It was Maria. "Remember, your ideas matter. Let's make this count." She had a way of cutting through the noise, delivering clarity with her unwavering belief in their mission. With his coffee in hand, Jason met Maria at the cafe once again. He noticed the vibrancy in her eyes, a sharp contrast to the storm brewing inside him. "What's on your mind?" she asked, as though reading the worries etched on his face. She had a knack for perceptiveness that both annoyed and comforted him. "Are we ready for this?" His voice wavered slightly, betraying the intensity of his inner conflict. "What if we hurt our chances before we even begin? Or what if we take this leap and it changes everything for the better?" she countered, a smile breaking across her lips. "Look, we'll go for it, and if it doesn't pan out, we reassess. We're not on a deadline. You need to let go of that fear." Her confidence sparked something in Jason, the flames of self-doubt flickering against the warmth of her encouragement. "This is also about me stepping into a new role," he admitted, finally opening up to the vulnerabilities he had concealed. "If I do this wrong, it reflects back at me, and I'm not sure I'm ready for the fallout." "Then let's take ownership together," Maria replied firmly. "People resonate with authenticity. If we show them we're genuine, they'll be inclined to trust us." Jason pondered her words as they shared ideas, morphing their unease into strategies tailored for connection rather than confrontation. Each potential scenario painted a pathway toward understanding clients' perspectives, allowing him to step into that leadership role he doubted so fiercely. They began drafting an informal video message to explain their intentions, hopeful to create familiarity even before the interviews began. As the day wore on, Jason's heartbeat settled into a rhythm of purpose. They recorded their video, Maria speaking candidly about the opportunity for transparency, while Jason's voice trembled slightly as he introduced himself. There was something liberating in putting their intentions out into the world, redefining his narrative from fear to a sincere call for engagement. Later, in the solitude of his apartment, he reviewed their message. Each playthrough revealed small imperfections, but they were human, real, and perfect in their authenticity. Then came the inevitable, a ping that shattered his growing confidence. A notification lit up his screen, a message from Rob, some veiled threat about competitive integrity. Jason's heart dropped. Could Rob sense his anxiety through the screen? More importantly, was he now on the offensive? The message ignited another round of doubts. Was he prepared for this kind of conflict? Could he maintain his aspirations when faced with the wrath of his former mentor? Tension gripped him, and breathing felt suddenly laborious. In that moment of internal upheaval, a revelation dawned upon him. The stakes were rising, but so was his ability to confront them. He recognized this was more than about business. It was about finding his own voice amidst the chaos. Every doubt he had harbored became a powerful reminder of the transformation he was poised to undergo. Taking a deep breath, Jason composed his response, feeling newly empowered even as anticipation clutched at his throat. He was ready to confront this head-on. Before hitting send, he glanced out the window. Rain began to patter against the glass, an echo of the tumult within. What would happen next? Would his response be the catalyst for change or a signal for war? Determinedly, he pressed the button, sending both a message and a silent promise to himself that he would rise to meet whatever was coming. The game had shifted, but Jason was no longer running from it. He stood ready to play. As the rain intensified, he felt both the thrill of fear and courage surging within him, entwined in an unresolved dance. If he was to grow personally and professionally, the true test was just beginning. The moment of reckoning was upon him. He could feel it in the air. Would he sink or swim in the approaching storm? Jason stood at the threshold of the garage, the familiar scent of oil and metal wrapping around him like an old friend. The weight of his journey pressed down like an anvil, yet inside, a transformative energy pulsed that felt entirely new. Weeks of navigating the complexities of both business and personal growth had led him here, to this pivotal moment, where the storm that had once threatened to engulf him evolved into a clear, resolute sky. After confronting Rob's underhanded tactics and embracing the power of community, Jason finally understood his true calling. His garage was not just a business, it was a sanctuary, a nexus where connection flourished, a place built on trust, integrity, and authenticity. The decision to create workshops had reshaped his approach, bringing new life to what had felt like a fading legacy. With each educational session, he peeled away layers of distrust from the community, revealing a sense of shared purpose that resonated beyond the surface. During the last workshop, he watched with deep satisfaction as faces lit up with newfound knowledge. People were eager to learn, and in turn, they shared their stories of struggle, resilience, and trust faltering under pressure. There was no denying how profoundly this interaction shaped him. They were forging bonds that were not just calculated business moves, but true connections rooted in empathy. Jason felt a gentle yet profound shift within himself. It was as if each interaction chipped away at the remnants of self-doubt that had haunted him for so long. Where previously he might have crumbled beneath the scrutinizing gaze of Rob, he now stood firm, bolstered by the relationships fostered in the garage. Confrontation with Rob had not brought about defeat, but had illuminated a clear path toward assurance and courage. As Jason cleaned the workbench, purposeful determination surged through him. He'd not only conquered the fears that had dogged him, but had transformed those fears into a motivating force, spurring him toward success. The threat that Rob had posed now felt like just that, a mere blip on his radar, a call to solidify his resolve instead of a sign of impending doom. It had been an opportunity to dig deeper into the qualities he admired: grit, trustworthiness, competence. By the time he turned to face Maria, bustling with excitement as she rallied the last participants to sign up for their upcoming session, he recognized the significance of this partnership. Together, they had built something extraordinary. More than a business, they had established a community of dedicated individuals. "We did this," he said, a sense of pride swelling within him. They had redefined their trajectory, blending dreams and reality in a fertile environment that both inspired and nurtured growth. Jason could scarcely comprehend how far he had come. Once apprehensive of others' perceptions, he now embraced vulnerability as a strength. Rejections and challenges had only sharpened his focus. Each workshop, every client interaction, had grown roots that had transformed into tangible, visible success. The kind he could measure not just in profits, but in trust earned and community created. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Jason crossed the threshold once again, this time leaving the garage with lightness in his step. The weight of his family legacy felt transformed from a daunting obligation into a long-lost treasure he was fiercely proud of. He understood that success is not measured by the absence of struggle, but by the grit demonstrated in overcoming it. The final acknowledgement came like a crescendo, a letter from the local Chamber of Commerce announcing his garage's recognition as the community's most trusted service provider. The small-town establishment hadn't just survived, it thrived, gaining momentum and support from those it aimed to serve. Reflecting on this journey, Jason felt a depth of pride washing over him, blending with clarity and gratitude. Instead of merely existing, he had become precisely who he set out to be, a beacon of integrity in a world conditioned to doubt. Every doubt that once clouded him was now a whisper of motivation instead of a chain around his neck. As he glanced at his reflection in the window, Jason knew the storm had transformed into a fresh dawn. The individual he had become stood resolute, ready to embrace the future with confidence and purpose. And with that, he resolved to continue this journey of growth and contribution. Don't wait even one more second. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support is essential for our growth. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Your insights matter. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of spreading inspiration.